Well, former top FBI Attorney James Baker saying he's cooperating now with the Justice Department Inspector General's investigation. Judicial Watch first released documents yesterday, which show communications between Baker and Washington Post reporter David Ignatius. Ignatius published leaked information on General Flynn's call with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak, speculating about the violation of the Logan Act law, which, by the way, has never, ever been prosecuted previously. Joining us tonight is Tom Fitton, the president of Judicial Watch. Tom, great to have you here. Let's start with these revelations. I mean, it's extraordinary. This is now laid bare for the American public to know what corrupt, criminal characters were leading the FBI, parts of the Justice Department, and agents who were their minions.
You're right. It is terrible corruption. Let me quickly correct you, Lou. I thought there's another James Baker. He was at the Pentagon, whose documents we released, who was in communications with the Washington Post, and that was the same agency running Stephen Halper. You're right. This is, the FBI is a terribly sick agency in terms of corruption. And we see a dramatic evidence of this with these new documents. They had no viable case, and that's a quote from the documents, against General Flynn, like they were doing with Trump. They were abusing their authority to spy on him, and they still couldn't come up with anything. And when they went to shut the case down, the documents today show, you had Strzok intervening on behalf of FBI leadership, and I mean Comey and McCabe, to keep the case open. And of course, that led to later the effort to try to have him fired or prosecute him by this ambush interview that was corruptly done at the direction personally of James Comey.
So let's talk about that leak and the implications here. We were told that that this was a major part of the investigation. It's clear that that is nothing more than an artifice, a cover for what the FBI meant to do, which was destroy General Flynn, right?
Yeah, you have to wonder if the leak was part of the operation against Flynn. I don't know who leaked it. Sidney Powell has alleged that this Baker may have been the one who leaked it. Certainly there's these communications showing he was close to Ignatius, who published the information in the Washington Post. Now, Durham supposedly is investigating the leak. So that was classified information, it looks like to me. So there may have been crimes committed targeting General Flynn, in addition to the crimes we're seeing evidenced in the documents this week. And I want to know who's responsible for the cover-up here. These documents have been in the possession of the FBI for years, evidently. These page Strzok emails and text messages have been withheld from Judicial Watch. They've been slow-rolling the release of these records. In fact, they are sitting on, right now, Lou, the FBI has 8,000 pages of page Strzok emails they've yet to release to Judicial Watch because they only can release them at a rate of 500 pages a month. We'll be getting them in the next administration.
Yeah. Isn't it clear that Wray is running a cover-up? And by the way, doing so under the auspices of President Trump's Attorney General William Barr. It is time for somebody to start leading the damn agency and the damn Department of Justice. This is corruption at its worst. It's laid bare for everyone to see, unless they don't have any attorneys in the Justice Department who don't understand civil rights or have the intelligence to see what are plain facts that are being witnessed by the American people every day, in part because of what Judicial Watch has turned over to the public.
Yeah, Wray is a disappointment. I think I would hope that he does something. A disappointment? I'm being nice. And Attorney General Barr has got to step up and pull back this prosecution of General Flynn. And if he doesn't, the president should order him to do it.
It's about time somebody got an order over there, because it's clear the Justice Department can't seem to manage the wherewithal and capacity to understand the difference. Forget about the law for just a minute, as they often do apparently at the Justice Department and FBI. How about just plain simple right and wrong? How about just plain good old American decency and treat people correctly instead of trying to destroy them?
Well, we appreciate these documents came out. The law required they came out, but they're still covering up. We just got a response today about meetings between the FBI top lawyer Baker, the one you mentioned, and the Clinton campaign team, top lawyer. And you know what the response from the FBI and DOJ was? We can't confirm or deny it took place. The cover-up continues, Lou. And these agency heads, if they're not going to be transparent, then there's no accountability and they don't respect the rule of law. And we're at square one in terms of getting some accountability for the worst corruption scandal in American history. The targeting of Flynn was about targeting Trump, and that's where the coup had its origins. And
it is so obvious what has been done to General Flynn, what was attempted to be done to President Trump. I cannot, for the life of me, understand why William Barr, and I don't know the man, I take him at his word, but his word is taking a very long time to do what seems so obvious to millions of Americans. Right the wrongs and straighten it out, and do it now. This delay is, and by the way, Judge Sullivan, what does it take for him to understand that he's dealing with corruption of extraordinary, unprecedented, vast dimensions in the Justice Department as they go after General Flynn? That case should be thrown out by the judge instantly. And instead, everybody's pretending somehow that this is a judiciary seeking only justice. It's pure bull and far worse than anyone could have possibly imagined. You get the last word, Tom.
Well, it's going to be a big task for both the judiciary and the Justice Department whether the rule of law is going to prevail or whether they're going to allow this coup attack to continue through the auspices of the Justice Department and just using the courts like a plaything. You see that with Judge Sullivan, they use the courts like a plaything with the FISA courts. I would like Judge Sullivan to institute criminal contempt proceedings against the Justice Department and FBI officials responsible for this, just as the FISA courts should have done, frankly, 2 years ago.
And still has done nothing. And by the way, administered by none other than the Chief Justice, John Roberts, who has sat on his hands and hidden behind a robe, cowardly, corruptly, in my opinion. Tom Fitton, good to have you here. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mark.